Guys, welcome to Digital TechJoint. In this video, I'm going to show you how to consume your web API in your MVC project in the controller class. So before we go ahead, please note that I had already created a project which will show you how to create web API in .NET Framework 6.0. So somebody who is new to developing web API can definitely go ahead and view this ASP.NET web API using .NET Framework 6.0. So let's get started. This is a project which is already there. Now we will open Visual Studio 2022 and we are going to create a project in and select ASP.NET Core Web MVC template. Click on next. Name the project as Consume Web API and click on next. .NET Framework 6.0 untick configure for HTTPS as of now and click on create button. So while the project is getting loaded, I have deployed the same web API that I demonstrated over here in this video on my local host, that is demo.api, and I'll show you the URLs. I'm using Postman to just demonstrate the working of the web API which we are going to consume in MVC project. So this is get users, this is a URL. The base URL will be http localhost colon 8080. It is hosted on port 8080 and we click on send because this is a get method. This will fetch all the records. So our purpose will be we'll consume this API and we'll fetch this record in the view. Second, there is a post method which will add new users. So this is a base URL again with the home and the action add user. We will pass in this parameters from the front end and add new users. So this is a this is a API and these are the two methods which will consume in our MVC project application. So here is our project which is loaded. So currently we'll go to there is default views. We will try to use the index view and populate all the information which we just showed. So we go to the controller class, go to the index, default index, and before we go ahead and start writing a code, we will actually refer the web URL. So we create a method called string base URL and our URL will be this one. This will be the base URL and now we go to the index class and we say async. We are going to use async method and task. So what we are doing is we are calling the web API and populating the data in view, okay, using data table. So the JSON of, so I'll show you. So we declare a data table object dt and we pull in the reference system.data. Now I'm going to use the HTTP client code. So using okay, so this is a client dot base address. So new URI and this will be my base URL which I declared in the top, which I declared it over here. So this is my base URL. Then client default request headers dot accept dot clear and client dot default request header dot accept add new media type. So we need to add new media type with, got it. So this is the entry system.headers. So you want to reduce the line of code, you just have to go and using, and then you can remove this line. So your code becomes quite okay. So you should have taken up this code, http dot headers. Let me just add once again. Okay, so now here we have media type header, and we say it will be a, so there's some exception which is coming over here. Let me just figure it out. JSON. Okay. So I got it. Sorry, I'm so sorry. It's new. Okay, so this becomes a header. We are adding a header for application.json, and then we use HTTP response message get data, sorry, get data, and then we go ahead and we call await client dot get async, and this is a method name. Await, because since we are using a async and task method in our index, that is why we are using it. And get user async is a user, which actually if you see the postman, you can see the get method, it's the user. So your base URL is, I'll just close this IS. Okay, so the base URL is this, as I mentioned. This is your base URL, and this is your method which will be get call. Okay, now I've requested the client to initiate the call. Now we need to check whether the call was successful. So get data dot is success code. So if it is a successful true, then we have received the data, else it's an error. So we will type in the code later for the exception, but for the success case we say string results equals to get data dot content dot read async, read as string async, and dot result. Okay, now once you have the JSON object, what you need to do, you need to call the DT, that is a data table, and use a JSON converter. Okay, so this you need to invoke this class. So just click on this and say install package Newtonsoft JSON. Just click on this, it will get installed in the package, this one, and we say okay. I think so, it's installed. You can see an active tick over here, Then we go back to home class, and now we say JSON dot deserialize. Okay, so you need to add the declarator. So you see using, so it will get added over here using newtonsoft.json, and then now you say deserialize object, and you pass the data table and the result. Okay, and in case if it is exception, we as of now just say console.writeLine error calling web API. Okay, so this was it. Now let us just execute this code, and then we'll write the code to bind the to create the view and show the data in the view. So let's put a breakpoint. So by default the index will be called, because this is the default index where we have written the code. Okay, so sorry, the breakpoint is already there. So this is the first line of code. We are passing the base URL, and we are setting the headers, and now we call the URL, and here is, so we got a status 200 which is successful. Now since it is successful, it will go inside, and now read as string, that will fetch us the JSON object, if you see. And if I go to the XML, not the XML but the text, you will see all the data has been fetched. Now this JSON format needs to convert into a data table object, and that is why we use deserialize it into data table format, and there you go. So now if you click on this, you see a table view of this record. Now we need to bind this record in the view. So in order to do that, let's build the view now. So we know now our API code, calling of API is successful in the first go. So now let's go ahead and work on the view. So we go ahead and click on the index, and index. So here we are going to say using, since we use the system.data, and then what is a model? A model is data table, because we are populating, we are converting the JSON object into data table, then data table becomes our data model over here. Now view data, we set the title, no, fetching data from web API. Okay, this is our title, and now we go ahead, we create a table view, and we create a head title. Okay, and this becomes a, this is our HTML dot display name, username. Okay, and we repeat this for password, for mobile, for email. Okay, so username, then we have password, and then we have mobile, and then email. This becomes a header, and now we create the body object, and now here we loop in the object. So we say for each data row in model.rows. So we looping in through all the rows, and then we say dr, and then this becomes dd at the rate row username, password, mobile, and email. So this is password, mobile, and email. So our code is ready. So let's go ahead, and now let us bind this to our view model. So view model, view dot, so we need to bind it, right? So view data dot model is td, and then already we are returning the view. So let's go ahead and run this project. Okay, so there is some issue. Mobile, the column mobile does not belong to table. Okay, let me just check. Is it the mobile number? Let us go ahead. Sorry, it's a mobile number. Got it. You go to the view and you change this to okay. I want to change it to Chrome. Default browser is Chrome. Email. Okay, so it's yes, you can see we are able to show, but we are getting repeated like that. So there is some. Okay, so it's just tr, it's not repeating. You should not repeat it. It's just correct. So guys, we were able to successfully fetch the record, and we were able to call the web API and also show the records in the view. Now we will go ahead and show you how to do the same using entity class. Assuming that you have an entity class also, and you want to, instead of deserialize and instead of using data table, you want to use the model class. So how do you do that? It's very simple. So let's do one thing. Let's create a model class as user entity, and I already have some methods named, so let's use this. So we have four property defined in our user entity: username, email, mobile, and password. So in this case, what we are trying to do is, in our first method we used the data table object and we did the deserialize and all the stuffs, but in this case we are simply going to use the entity class and pre-populate the information. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we are going to do is that we are going to not use data table and use this entity class. So we will create a new method and we'll create a new web view class. So we just copy this code, paste it, and then we say index 2. Okay, and in this index 2, what are we going to do is that we are going to call where we populate the data in view using entity model class. Okay, so we have created, so instead of data table dt, what we are going to do is we are going to use ilist and call the user entity class user new. Okay, now we have defined this class. So there is an issue, and this is list, not list. Okay, so this is the class defined. Now we come to the same class we defined, we call the same base URL. This all code will remain the same except for this code where we are going to create JSON string. This is also already a JSON, so let's keep this as it is, and we change the content string read as async, which is also right. And now instead of dt we say user, which is defined in the top, and JSON deserialize object, and we use our list user entity. Okay, and then instead of result, which is a JSON, we say results, or this remain the same, and JSON. Here you don't have to call this, you're calling directly over here. Get data content, which is still the same, and then content dot read as string async, and user is JSON convert dot deserialize, and then list, and this will be result. Yes, that works. Else we get an error, and now instead of dt we say user, in a view model. So this is a code which will actually do the same thing, but without using data table, we are using the entity class directly. Now let us create a view out of it. So right click, and we select an empty view and name this index 2. Okay, and from the index 1 we are going to copy the same code and paste it in the index 2, but this time we are going to make some changes in the headers. Okay, so we are going to use remove system.data and model will be I enumerable user entity. The rest all will remain the same except for this area where we say for each where item, or we can keep it row in data.model, and this will be row dot username, row dot password, row dot mobile, and row dot email. So we are our view is ready in this case. So since we created a new view, you say index.2. Okay, so it's not like that, it's home slash index 2. So we are able to fetch the same record using the entity model class. So two approaches of calling the get method in your controller class. The final one which we are going to do is how to add new records. So for that we'll be consuming the same API but a different action, that is add user, and we'll pass this parameters and add new records. So in this procedure we are going to use the post method. So let's go ahead and add the code for post method. So we are going to say public async task action result, output will be string, method name will be add user, and this will take user entity, this is a method. Now user entity object equals, and here we pass in the values. So username equals to user.user, then password, then email, and mobile. So we have passed the values to the object. Now we just add a validation if user dot username not equals to null, that means users have entered the value. In this case we are going to use the HTTP client So we are going to use the same code which is there in the above. We're going to use the same object and paste it. Now here we are going to do one small change. Have to use this entire code. Okay, and we have to remove this line. Now here this is a small change. Base URL means this URL. Okay, but we need to give the action item also. It's a post method. So base URL, I'm appending with the base URL users slash. Okay, because I need to call the post method, which is this user and the add user. So I'll show you how to call the post method. First, my base URL becomes now the base URL and the users. Now I will not call this method because this is not a get method, this is a post method. So what I'm going to do is client, and then I'm going to change this post as sync. I'm going to call the entity class, that is user entity class, and here I'm going to mention the method name, add user, action name, sorry, and I'm going to pass the object. Object means the one that is holding the new record set passed by the user, entered by the users. So look at the statement, post async, JSON async, the entity class we are passing. This is the add user. So our base URL becomes this. This is the action method as I showed you in the postman. This becomes the entire URL, and then we are saying call this add user, and we are telling the code that it is a post, it's not a get. So once this is done, okay, here we need to simply redirect to the view page. We want to show user the new record added. So return redirect to action, and here we are calling index. We can call index or index 2, both will give you the same result, and home, otherwise it's an exception. So this is a code now for adding new records. Okay, and then finally we return the view. So code is ready. Let's put a breakpoint, and sorry, before we go ahead, we need to add a page, view page, to capture the values from the front end. So what we need to do is simply right click, add user, say empty. Okay, and just name this as add user. Okay, now I have the HTML ready. So just to save time, I've copied this HTML. So this is nothing but a simple form where it captures a username, mobile, email. This becomes our consume a project. This is a model, we refer this model, and this is add user, and this is add user action method. So when you submit the form, this will be called add user. This is a very simple form which I created. Now what we do is just run the project, execute the project, and we will add new user. Okay, by default index we say slash home and slash add user. See, breakpoint is called. Now this is right now this is a post method, so obviously the data will be null. So that is why I've added the validation to simply return the view. Yes, so this is view. I just add demo at the rate mail.com, mobile number, and demo. And now I click on create. This is a breakpoint. Now this contains all the information, username, password, and everything which is passed into this object, entity object. Now this is not null, so it will go inside. Now this is a base URL. So this is a base URL. You can see it's users. And now we're setting the address. Now we are going to use the post method and pass the object. Yes, it's successfully called. And if you look at this, the status is 200. That means the new user is successfully added. Now we proceed, and then it redirects you to the index page. And you can see the last row. So this is how I have shown you creating consuming web API. I've shown you how to consume and build a view basis a data table, and how to consume the same web API and build a view using the entity class. And I've also shown you how to use the post method to add new users. So I guess it's a suggestion that whenever you are writing the code, please use a common method for calling the client object and then returning the same to the controller. For the demo purpose, I have actually written the code in the controller for better understanding, but I strongly recommend that whenever you are using this code or getting some idea, please create a common method so that you can handle the get and post at one place and simply call that refer that in the controller class. So guys, I hope this was in good and informative video for you to show you and demonstrate how to consume the web API using the post and the get method. Please do subscribe my channel and please do like this video. Thank you so much for your time.